Hi guys, it's Blackie and Bear, and this is the chapter what? Six? Six of the Old Wayz.
Chapter 5.
Huh?
Chapter 5.
It is 5?
No, it is 6. It is 6. I'm losing count.
This is the senior edition.
6.
So we're going to tentatively say 6. If it's 5, I'll put the little indicator up there, but it's a senior moment, okay? So,
Barter was 5.
Barter was 5, that's right. So we're on the other hand now. We've done all these fingers, now on one thumb on that side, so it's on 6. But anyway, what we're going to talk about today is bread. And bread was one of the most desired foodstuffs in most of history. And if you'll go back and look, now today bread's cheap and available to us. That's modernization. But you go back and look from like the 1930s and back, and you look at a lot of political speeches in small towns, and they're talking about that there would be bread for everybody. We'll have bread.
And a chicken in every pot.
Chicken in every pot and bread. And it was because flour was expensive, and it was kind of time, sensitive to make up. I think your Dutch oven is good and warm. I'm seeing steam boil off of it.
Yep.
And so what they would do is you would grow the wheat, let's say, and you would take it to the mill, and you either paid, which was not cheap, to have it ground, stone ground into a flour, or you traded, which meant you gave him like up to a third of what you put in. So if you brought in a 5-gallon bucket, would be a 5-gallon bucket of flour, you got back 1/3 less because he got to keep that. And then the mill could either use that flour or sell that flour or turn it into baked goods. Quite often you'd have a grist mill right next to a bakery for that very reason, because they turn around and bake bread. Sliced bread did not really become common until after World War II in many places. They had it before that, but really you saw it in the big cities. You didn't see it in small towns because it was a machine that cut that bread that size, and it just wasn't common for bakeries to have it.
Well, there was another thing too. Getting baked bread from a central location in the city out to where you and I would live,
yeah,
it would be stale.
Bread doesn't last long.
It wouldn't last.
And so because of that, bread was a big commodity. So carrying flour was a thing. So let's talk about how the old woodsman would make bread on the trail. Well, one, they would go ahead and carry their flour and stuff in a larder. And in mine, I carry my larder in here. This is sold by CAMPFIRE. It's a series of tins. So I've got a tin that's got flour in it. I also got other things down here. There's like 6 tins. And I got something that's got other little sugars and stuff in it. Sounds like something exciting's happening up on the highway, don't it? Probably an ambulance going somewhere. So, flour would be carried to the field in some sort of sealed up thing. And a lot of times it was just simply a sack that had been waterproofed or whatever to prevent it getting moisture in it as much as possible. And what the old guys would do is they would sit the sack down, and if you were wanting something like lard or whatever in it, they would cut that in at home and carry a measured portion. That would last a couple of days to the field. Now, what we're going to be doing today is Bear's going to be making beer bread, and I'm going to be making, in a old Boy Scout mess kit, small biscuits. Now, what I'm going to be using for a mix is this Jiffy buttermilk biscuit mix, and it's old-time baking powder biscuits. And if you look in the ingredients, it's got lard already cut into it. That's one of the reasons I like it. I get this at Walmart. It's like 86 cents a thing. Now the trick to it is, as my granddaddy taught me, he would carry flour or whatever, and he'd carry a paper sack. I'm going to use a Ziploc bag. But he would take his flour, he'd take the measured part out and he'd put it into the bag, and then he'd roll the top of the bag up and he'd shake it. What you're doing, that's what sifting does. It puts air back into the mix so it doesn't clump up. It makes the moisture, when you put the water and all to it, go through it easier and it doesn't clump up, okay? So we're just simply going to tumble it, shake it up, and get air into it for a minute or so. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Now, you're using what?
Self-rising flour, sugar, salt, and beer.
Okay, how much of each? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I have rounded up. We'll go with about 3 cups of self-rising flour, approximately 3/4 of a cup of sugar, a healthy pinch of salt, and a can of beer. 1 can of beer.
Okay, and it's cheap,
It's
room
easy.
temperature beer.
Real easy.
Now the beer with the yeast and all in it adds the idea of the baking powder. It's going to produce the bubbles. Now what I'm going to do is a variation of my standard biscuit thing is I'm going to use warm can of Sprite soda instead of water into it because it will add bubbles to it. Never done this before, so it's a little bit of a trial and error for me as well.
It's a walk of faith.
It's a walk of faith. So we'll set this up in just a second for you. Let us get set up a little bit better and we'll be right back with you. Okay, we're going to be using charcoal because it's going to be 103 today and we're not interested in overheating ourselves. So we're trying to keep it focused rather than building a big old fire. Now, go ahead.
I've got some rocks that I'm putting in the Dutch oven to lift the pan off of the bottom.
Yep.
Because if the pan's in contact and the air can't circulate, it's going to become charcoal on the bottom.
Yep. Now that pan, that Dutch, he's already set on top of the brazier, and it's had time with that sitting there. It's got good and hot all by itself. Now I don't know how you're going to put 2 in there, boss.
I'm not.
Okay.
It's tall, but it ain't that tall.
Alrighty. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put coals on top of that to get it to cooking.
There's nothing underneath there now.
I know. You can pick it up and move it. That enough? You want to move it?
Let's go with this for just right now.
Okay. Now, so to put only gonna need 1 or 2 underneath.
Yeah.
Grab this, open it up.
One more right over there. Perfect.
I don't want them to get that too small. And 1 more size. There, that's pretty good size. I said you. There.
Egg, you're it.
Yeah. There you go.
Which can on?
It's on.
Okay. We've got some underneath the bottom. We've got some underneath the top. And in about 45 minutes, we should have bread.
There you go. We'll keep an eye on those coals, and if they start dying out where nothing, will add 1 or 2 more. And of course, about every 5 minutes, he's going to turn and rotate everything. Turn the lid a 1/4 turn one way and the bottom a 1/4 turn the other way. That way it prevents hot spots underneath and on top. Okay, now I'm going to be using the old vintage Boy Scout mess kit. Now this is the aluminum one I just got. And inside here I've got the lid to the pot. I've greased the top up with some lard and sat it down. I'm going to put my biscuit on top of this, okay? Now, into my mixing bowl, I'm going to take a measured amount, probably about a little over half of this, and put into that bowl. Just about like that. Should be enough. Now, how am I measuring? I'm not. I'm just going to put a given amount because I'm making 1 biscuit for me. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to take a spoon. And since I have whipped this up, shook it up I should say, I got me a nice big spoon. I don't have to worry too much about putting air into it. Otherwise I'd take a fork and whip it. Now it really wouldn't be a bad idea because you can see how even though I've shook it, see these pills, so to speak? Granny used to call them pills. Just take a fork and kind of do like that and get rid of the pills through it. Just like this. That makes it kind of uniform, keeps you from having big lumps in your biscuit. Alright, now right in the middle of it, I'm going to make a little opening, little pit. Okay. Now I'm going to pour in slowly and gradually a little bit of liquid and stir it in until it completely saturates. How much? How much flour, how much liquid? It's just a random pick. I'm going to pour about like that much. Pick up my spoon, start turning the pan and come from the outside and rake toward the middle. Let it start making a dough. When all the liquid disappears, I'll add a little bit more. See, a little at a time.
It's lots easier to put it in than just take it out.
Yeah, and notice I got extra flour left. So if I do go too far and I end up with a little bit too much, then I can turn around and go back and add some dry flour to it. Now, this is getting awful close. Just like that. Just keep stirring. Give it a little mash every now and then to make sure it's getting in the middle. Tear the ball up to make sure that it's not just on the outside. There we go. Now what I'm doing is rolling it and kind of kneading it at the same time. Take the side of that spoon, and I see little puffs of white in there, and that's those pieces that have not incorporated. Tear them up with the spoon. Just like that. And it'll go from being really sticky to not being so sticky. That's what we're looking for. That's when it stopped being a glob and became actually a dough. I'm going to sit down a second because the angle I'm at is bad on my back. And I got sweat just a rolling right now. What was it, 93% this morning?
95 was, and at 7 o'clock it was 76 degrees.
Yeah.
Welcome to the South.
Welcome to the South. It's going to be supposed to be 101 or so today, maybe 103, and the record was supposed to be 96, so we shall see, Batman.
We're going to take a step up on the podium.
That's it. Alright, getting there. It's coming together. I don't want to rush this part. I like to do this nice and easy, and like you see, it's becoming more of a dough than just something mixed. And that's what I'm looking for. The stickiness is going down. Alright, now once I get it to this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and flour my hands and flour that. You're going to take a little bit more of that mix, put a little flour over the top of it. Take a good pinch, put in my hands, rub my hands, keep rotating up on top, on the bottom, like that, till my hands are done. Now I'm going to take this and roll it around a little bit with that flour. Just like this. You give me a little bit more on top. That's good. Make it where it's not such a glob. Now, take it out. Roll it between the hands. Kind of pat it. Now, how thick do I want this? I want it about a 1/2 inch thick. That means I'm going to kind of squeeze her down just a little bit. I'm going to lay it onto my target base. And now I'm going to take my fingertips. I'm going to press it down until it's about the size of that thing. And it's about, roughly, a 1/2 inch thick. Just like that. Now the rest of this, I just rub my hands and it'll start rolling off my hands. I can rinse, I can wash my hands off. No big deal. Good. A little bit of water and it dissolves into paste. One more time. Good. I got a big old bottle of water over there too, so we're good. Appreciate it. Now, clean that up in a minute. Now there's my biscuit, ready to go. And I'm going to take what's left of this, give it to nature. That's that lard piece, that lard paper. Scrape all the excess out, leaving that top kind of floured, like that. I'm going to sit that over the top, just like that. Now I'm going to take the handle, spin it around, I'm going to lock it in position. Just like that, looking around the edges, trying to center it up. Now what I'm going to do with this is, I've got my thing set up where I've got 3 steel tent stakes stuck in the dirt. I've already gone over and stuck them and leveled them. I'm going to put 1 or 2 coals underneath it. This is aluminum, it goes quickly. Then what I'm going to do is up here on the top of this, I'm going to take my cook pot. I'm going to take a piece of aluminum foil just to make life easier. Put it down in that pot. Just like this. And into that is where I'm going to put some hot coals. I'm going to sit that on top of it to help cook that. It'll cook in about 10 to 15 minutes. So let me set that up for you right quick. And I'll enjoy my soda while I'm doing it. Okay, there are, right there where those tongs going through, there are those 3 steel tent stakes stuck in the ground to be the spacer. Okay? Fan that back so you can see what we're doing. All right, hold on a second. So I'm going to take and put just a few coals, and I mean just a few. Remember, that's aluminum. It's going to heat real easy, so just 2 or 3 small coals are sufficient for it. That should be enough. Now I take and I sit right there. Now the hive right there. Somebody done stepped on it. You look at that. Probably somebody named Blackie. There we go. Now we're going to set that little pot down.
Just pour it in.
Yeah, let me see your glove. Them hot ashes right there. Put that on top. We're going to give that about 15 minutes and we'll see what we got. Okay guys, so back to bread. Cooking bread on the trail, the old Boy Scout favorite of simply making up the dough and then rolling it around a stick and put it out over the fire on the stick and slowly turn it and roast it. That's very viable, and that was probably the most common way that guys in the field, because you didn't have to do anything special with that.
That cast iron, that bake pot, or whatever you call it.
Dutch oven.
Dutch oven, thank you. It's heavy.
It's heavy. And it was great if you had a wagon or a mule or something, or if you had a permanent camp, but carrying it on your back got old real quick. Although it was the greatest thing, and the guys going out west on the wagons, they loved the Dutch ovens for that very reason. I mean, they just, you could take it and cook and bake and roast and fry anything in a Dutch.
And they were, they were very, very plentiful in the what became the United States as well as Canada. There's an account, I believe it's called Journey Through the Backwoods or something like that. It's written by a British officer's wife, and she describes it in like the 1750s, 1780s maybe. She describes in great detail going from cabin site to cabin site, and everybody had them, and everybody cooked in them all the time.
It was the favorite, like we think of today, you go to a house that's expected you've got a microwave. Well, in those days, if you were going to be living on the frontier, it was expected you had a Dutch oven.
You almost had to.
You had to.
You get on a day like today when at 10 minutes to 9 it's 90 degrees and the humidity's 94%.
I just got rivers of sweat running down my back right now.
You don't want to fire up the fireplace.
No, you don't want to use that fireplace. And so you could use like we've got over there, a small brazier to get a little small fire going to produce coals, and then transfer those to the Dutch and not heat up the whole house or heat up the whole camp, because it was just so miserable due to the heat. But like I said, you made bread on a stick. The Boy Scout mess kits, you see that in all the early Boy Scout manuals talking about baking bread and using the Scout set as a little Dutch oven, and that's what they refer it to. Bread was a commodity because it didn't last. That's one of the reasons that German breads, which were so hard, you didn't eat the outside of it.
Those thick, dense breads.
Yeah, really hard, dense wheat breads, that the outside of it was hard as a rock. And you broke it. The outside is acting like a protective shell to keep it from going bad quickly and drying out. And they would break it open and eat the inside out and then use the outside for a bowl, basically.
A lot of folks around would carry ship's biscuit.
Yeah.
Hardtack.
Hardtack.
And they would have a pouch and they would take their hardtack and put a couple of pieces in the pouch, and then take their hulk and split it and powder it up and use that as a thickener. You were talking about carrying lard. Another thing they would carry was tallow. We've mentioned tallow before. Tallow, it comes from the fat that surrounds the kidney.
And some around the heart. It just depends on the animal.
Yeah.
It's a real waxy fat.
It's thick.
Instead of creamy, it feels more like candle wax. That's the only way I can explain.
You've got some over there in you.
Yeah. Hold on, let me grab it. I'll show you that right quick.
I found a local supplier, and I rendered some up and gave Blackie some of it this morning to just go and experiment with. You can take it and you can cube it up and mix it into your food.
It's not going to be a lot to look at, but it's a white, waxy, it kind of looks like you got melted candle wax in there is what it's going to look like.
It looks like Gulf paraffin.
Yeah, like paraffin wax or something. Woo! I'll chase that down, but you see. And it's, you can cook with it, eat it, do whatever you got to do. Lube guns with it. Tallow is one of the favorite lubes for guns back in the day.
Yeah. Mix it with a little beeswax.
Matter
of fact, that's what I use. There's a half and half tallow and beeswax.
Yeah. But one of the things we spoke of is about bread being such a commodity. We think of bread as being cheap because it is in our time period. But back in the day, meat was relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And bread was sort of the more desired thing because almost every meal was meat because you had a smokehouse. So you had hogs and cows and processed and canned and whatever, but all you're eating is vegetables and meat, vegetables and meat. That's all you got. And yeah, there was some variety, but you could only can and put up so much. And so they had to come up with other ways. Show them that right quick.
We've also mentioned that I have experimented with canning in the past. This is one of the things that I canned. This is Black Label sausage that I browned in my skillet, and then I put it in the jar and poured lard over it and then pressure canned it.
Yeah.
It changes the texture a little when you pressure can it. It changes the texture just a little bit. It turns it sort of, I hate to use the word spongy, but there's no other term to use. But there's probably 20 lengths of sausage in this jar. And
wouldn't require refrigeration. Carry it to the field, dig it out, put it in the pan and just warm it up.
One of my grandmothers taught me that all you really wanted to do was fill it up and cover the sausage and put the lid on it, tighten it down, and you didn't have to can it. She had been doing it that way for 80 years. But I went the extra mile and I pressure canned mine. Like I said, it changes the texture of the sausage just a little bit, but it's not offensive, and you can eat it at any time.
So there's a way to preserve that type of stuff and carry it. And having something like, times are getting tough and you got this, because it's the end of season and you've went through your smokehouse and things are getting lean and you don't have a pig or a cow you can butcher right now and nobody's seen a deer in a little bit, and etc. Being able to make bread was a treat. You know, it was a whole lot of calories, it was easy to make, and that's really not, like I point out, you look back at the old historic documents talking about it, bread was a big argument.
At some points in history, people were paid with bread. You know, the Romans paid their soldiers with salt, which is where we get the phrase, is he worth his salt? You could also be paid in bread or other items.
A small town, if it had a blacksmith and a bakery and a mill, a lot of places you'll find were on creeks and stuff, and somebody would come in and they'd build a mill and then they'd bake bread, because like I said, they're working on barter there, and because bread was available there, people would come in, and then next thing you know, there's a blacksmith setting up and a town would form over that. I remember reading of a guy that he left Tennessee and went into Missouri back in about of course it wasn't Missouri then, but it was like 1838, 1839. And he had a big cargo wagon and he hauled all his grist stones and all from his grist mill. And he found a real nice creek with the way he wanted it, and he built a grist mill. He didn't even have the mill completely built, and people were showing up, both natives and pioneers that had already gone out there and set up. And he talked about this one morning, he woke up and he could distinctly hear the sound of a wagon squeaking. And there was no road here at this time, you know, it was just paths. And coming down the path coming into where his creek was this smaller wagon. He'd had to widen that out to get his big wagon in there to bring his gear in. And here was this guy that had traveled 60 miles wanting to know if he could get wheat ground. That was 2-3 days. Carrying a load of wheat. He said that somebody up there had already told him that he had a functioning mill down here and they were coming in, because they wanted flour. And so he already had business. He said he got the guy to help him finish setting up. That was his first customer, and he ground it for free because the guy had helped him set up.
No, he didn't. He borrowed his labor.
He borrowed that labor.
He bartered for his labor.
He bartered for that labor, so he ground it and got it all set up. And then he said that after that first day, he said that mill never stopped running for the next 43 years. When he finally had retired and was done, and he handed it off to his son, and his son was taking the mill apart to move it to Colorado. You know, 43 years that mill, said every single day that mill was grinding. In the middle of nowhere.
I need to turn my lid, and you need to check yours.
Yep, I got to rotate mine. Be right back, guys.
I got them.
Oh, okay, no wonder.
That's looking nice.
Yep, it is looking good.
That's looking good.
Rising up just fine. All right, now let me have my pliers. What I'm gonna do with mine, take that off. Grab the back here. Pick up, rotate.
You're off center.
Doesn't matter, I'm gonna set it off center on top up here. There we go. Give it about another 10 minutes and we'll check on that. It's either gonna be glorious or a horrible flop. We shall see. And that's the thing, you gotta do it and just try by, that's the thing, you just gotta try by trial and error. I wish we could just tell you that you snapped your fingers and everything went perfect every time. It ain't that way, it's life.
Well, one of the whole reasons for doing this series is because of things like hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
We're a month into hurricane season and we've already had 2 storms. They were right at the beginning.
There weren't hurricanes, but they were just a real intense storm front.
Yeah, tropical storms. But, you know, up in other regions, well, I mean, even we had tornadoes.
Mm-hmm.
And people up in the Great Lakes region, up along the Ohio River, y'all have blizzards and snowstorms that would absolutely shut us down.
Well, now they've been having here lately. They've been having all kinds of storms because I was looking at the video just this past week from a storm front coming through South Dakota. Mm-hmm. And it was blown hail and it was showing this cars and stuff being trapped at this convenience store trying to get out of it and glasses getting busted out and all like that. And the guy's talking about he'd never seen a storm like that, and I was thinking you and I have probably seen 200 storms like that down here.
Well, you know, the other day at work, I was sitting here, I was right before we went to Blade Show.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this, we had a huge thunderstorm roll through town. I mean, biblical proportion thunderstorm. There was light hail, pea-sized hail. There was probably 70-mile-an-hour gusts, and the rain was blowing sideways, literally. And I'm out in my Tahoe monitoring traffic, and my Tahoe's doing this, just from the wind hitting it.
Yeah, and we don't consider that's bad, but we don't consider that unheard of down here.
No,
you know,
that's pretty routine for this time of year.
We expect very intense storms that you can go from nice and pretty, oh, it's supposed to rain this afternoon, to it just all come together and a black cloud form and it just seems like an hour. You can't see across the road.
Yeah, that's what happened in this case. And it's like we were talking, I don't remember if it was in the second or third video, but we were talking, one of our talks, no, it was one of our early talks out here.
Okay.
We talked about the reality of hypothermia in June.
Yep.
When you have a storm like that come in that quick, with that rain coming down from 80,000 feet, temperature goes from 96 to 76. And if you don't believe that will shock you, believe me, that will shock you.
Especially after you've been out in this heat for 6-8 hours and you're used to that kind of heat, and suddenly you drop 25-30 degrees, you think it'd be like, oh, that feels so good. Actually, it kind of, like you say, it kind of shocks you. It does, but it doesn't. You don't feel great with it. It kind of cooled off. And after, if you're not exerting yourself, but a lot of times you be out, like us, you be out in the field or something doing something, and that kind of storm hit, and you're praying for it because, man, I want to cool off. And then after that thing passes, you're sitting there going, that made my life worse. It didn't make it better. So, just where you at. But back to today, we're talking about bacon. Bacon, cooking, things like that. Better using a Dutch oven. I recommend everybody in your larder kit get a Dutch oven and practice with it. There's tons of stuff on it, and if you got no idea how to do anything, There's a wonderful little book sold by the Boy Scouts called the Dutch Oven Cookbook. It takes you through step by step where they're assuming you don't know nothing, and it's going to give you every little step and how to know and when to know, that type deal.
Most Boy Scout, what do they call the main building?
Hut, Scout Hut.
The main Scout Hut, where the executive lives, the local executive works, I'm sorry. They will generally let anybody who wants to come in and buy something within certain limits buy something. Now, there are things in there that only Scouts can buy. But if you want an information book, I'm almost positive they will let you go in and buy one. Because it increases your skills.
And that I'd recommend that in the past, that look at what all the merit badges are. First aid, stuff like that. These books were written for young people, and no, it's not the most comprehensive whatever, no. But if you have no idea what you're starting, when you say, I want to cook on a Dutch oven, and you've never done nothing but run a microwave,
yeah,
the Boy Scout book on Dutch ovens is where you start. It will give you a working knowledge so that whenever you go get the more advanced books, you got an idea. You're going to cut down a lot of the mistakes with it. And the recipes they put into those are very good, quick, edible recipes that doesn't require a lot of effort.
Almost all Dutch ovens have legs. And if you have a gas stove and you're in a situation where you don't have electricity but you do have gas, you can actually put that Dutch oven on the eye of the stove and warm it up. Warm up the basin, take the lid, put it on the one next to it and warm it up too. And then put your stuff in it, put your lid on it, and the heat, just the convection of the heat through the metal, maybe not warm up the lid, but anyway, the heat through the convection of metal will actually surround the meat like you've got coals on it. You don't want to have your gas turned up high. You want it very low. The secret to cooking in a Dutch oven is low and slow. That's the difference between grilling and barbecuing. They are two separate words.
I will have a video coming up in the near future where I'm going to compare skillets, and I've got the aluminum Boy Scout set, I've got the steel Boy Scout set, and then I've got that big Pathfinder skillet. And what we're talking about is you have your heat source. How efficiently does this heat source transfer to the food? Okay? Aluminum transfers very fast and easy. Well, that means I can have a lot less heat and still do the same job. On the other hand, it means I can burn stuff in a hurry. If I've got a thick, heavy pan like cast iron and I put up there, it cooks more evenly because the heat has to saturate the pan, and that's spreading the heat out to cook evenly, and then it holds the heat longer. So I can put it on medium heat, put that big hunk of iron on there, and it will take 10 minutes for it to get up to temp as opposed to 30 seconds for aluminum. But it'll cook very evenly, and that's the reason people had cast iron skillets, cast iron Dutch ovens, etc., because it was very forgiving, and it was basically a non-stick surface once you got it good and seasoned.
Yeah.
And it cools down slower as well, and that's an advantage because I go and put a new piece of chicken that's relatively cold. I'm deep frying, that brings the overall temperature down in that oil. The heat of that pot helps hold that up. It doesn't flux as fast.
No.
And that's a problem with aluminum cookware, and we had, we grew up with fried chicken. I mean, come on.
It's one of the 4 basic food groups.
You had fried chicken a lot. And when me and my wife were first getting together, I had cast iron.
Yeah.
My wife had aluminum. And I would go in there and I'd fire up my big pot on the stove, and I'd put it on high heat until it was almost up temp. I'd drop it back down to medium, and then I would put all the chicken pieces in it, and fried, and within, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of starting to cook, I was done. Her aluminum transferred so fast, but it also dropped temperature so fast that if she put more than 3 pieces of that chicken in there at a time, and they were cold, the oil temperature just stopped bubbling. It would just suck all the heat out because it was cold. It's like putting ice cubes in it. Where mine, I could have a good rolling boil. I could put all the chicken into it, and it would still be at a rolling boil.
Yes.
She'd have to crank it up to high to try to get it back up high enough, and all of her chicken was greasy because it was cooling down, absorbing oil, and then it'd come back up to temp.
It also was probably a little bit raw around the bone, too.
Exactly, because it was not cooking evenly. Mine would be all the way through nice and even. So once she figured that out, I lost my cast iron.
Well, it was hers all along. You just
there's yours, mine, and ours, yeah. And suddenly it became my set was now the kitchen set, and I think I remember the aluminum set being palmed off to a family member. Well, it's about time for me to check and see if that biscuit has done anything other than lay there. So let me go bring that over here and we'll take a look. Okay, first check, it looks good, it's puffing up good, but I needed more heat up on the top, which I expected. I would rather cook a little too slow when doing aluminum like this. People think it's not cooking. We're used to instant cooking because of microwaves and stuff like that. So if I put it up there and I throw them little bit of coals on there and it's not done in 5 minutes, something's wrong. No. It's actually better if it cooks slow. And so I've got the initial coals I put in the pan up on top and the coals I put underneath. Now those have spent and it cooled down. Now I put more hot coals on the top. Now my biscuit went from like that thick till it's that thick. See? And now I put a lot more heat up on top. And that's going to brown it, finish drying it out.
I did the same thing on mine.
Yeah, on the bottom it's probably perfect. So I just added one more coal underneath, a fresh coal. And then I added, fill that thing back up with fresh hot coals on top. By putting it in that pot, it's got to heat the pot and then hit the lid and down. So I'm intentionally crippling myself. Could I just pour coals on top? Yeah, but I'd probably burn the top. I'm wanting it to transfer that heat evenly and make that whole area up there radiate heat down like a broiler will.
Almost a trickle.
A trickle
heat.
Yeah, I'm in no hurry. You know, I'll cook it up in the time. As long as I get a biscuit this morning, I'm happy. You know, so that's where we're at.
Mine's been on about 45 minutes. So we should be getting close. It's like he was saying, when you're cooking on an open fire, there's no such thing as instant gratification. We're a society that is hung up on instant gratification. You know, we don't want it even now, we want it 10 minutes ago. And you've got to be patient. You just can't do it with the snap of a finger.
And to me, it's very therapeutic. I like to come in and set my camp up and gather up my firewood, take a breather for a few minutes, process my firewood into what I'm going to need for the next 24 hours at my camp, take a break, and then decide whenever it's time to eat. I'll have my fire going, have my coals ready, or my stove, whatever it is I'm using for a heat source. And then when I start cooking, if it takes me 30, 35, 40 minutes to cook a meal, okay, I got time. You know, I'm not going to starve to death sitting here waiting on it. If you want fast and quick, boiling things, stews, stuff like that that's pre-made up, that all I got to do is just put it on heat and I can have that hot in 10 minutes.
Yeah, you know, the pre-prepared things, they do have their place. We're in no means saying that they don't. You know, it's really good to have, I have Mountain Trails food in some of my packs. Because all you got to do is just add hot water, wait 10 minutes or wait 5 minutes, stir it up and you're eating. You know, that's good. That's good. But to know how to take a roast and put it in a deep Dutch oven like this and cook it so that you don't have charcoal on one side and bloody meat on the other one. that's a skill, that's an art, and it would really be beneficial to learn how to do that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can go to places like Walmart or any other big box store, and you can buy a big aluminum Dutch oven. Why would you want to? Go for the cast iron. You just about can't kill it. You can kill that aluminum.
Yeah.
You can burn that aluminum slam up, but you just about can't hurt cast iron.
Short of dropping it and cracking it,
Yeah.
you're good. Talking about doing Dutch ovens, I took, at one of our events, I took a roast, and I took my knife and I would stab into the meat, down deep into the meat. And then I had a thin little thing I would stick in there like a pair of chopsticks and open it up.
Yeah.
And I would pack crushed garlic down into it, pull the sticks out. And I did that like 8 or 10 places. Put that meat in the bottom of the dry Dutch on hot, and then seared it all the way around, sealed the juices in. Got a goose or a duck down there. Then I took it and I put a bed of onions on the very bottom. Let them start browning, then I put the meat on top, put the lid on, and let the onions kind of steam the meat. And then after that, had enough time for those onions to turn translucent, I took a can of on juice, Campbell's on juice. It's just meat juice is all it is. Poured it in there with it, put some other vegetables, sliced potatoes around it and stuff, put the lid on, put it on low heat, and let it simmer for about 3 hours.
You could cut it with a spoon.
It just fell apart, you know. But whenever I pulled it off the coals and when I picked the lid off, everybody downhill suddenly and turned my way. You know you got something, because that's what my uncle used to call the sniff test. If a coon dog can find it, it's good. And he said, you know, all you got to do is pull the lid off, and half your neighbors down the street suddenly got something they want to talk to you about, and they're showing up.
I know good. I know that pack of folks and love them dearly, but the pack of buzzards starts showing up with a plate in one hand and a fork in the other one.
Yeah. Camp dogs. We had back in living history, there was several people that we got put the nickname on them of camp dog because they always showed up at mealtime because they couldn't cook for crap. And you know, oh, me and Don Davis was at the Eastern, and this was day 4 of a 7-day camp, and I grilled ribeyes, and we had baked potato, steamed vegetables. I had done a banana pudding in the Dutch oven, and we had fresh rolls I had baked. And we're here, and about that tree you can see back yonder, that tree was the guy that was camping next to us. And we were just about to sit down to eat, and he walked over and said, I am so damn tired of being next to y'all. And I hadn't spoke to him a lot. I went, really? And he said, yeah, this is my 3rd day eating canned SpaghettiOs, and every night y'all have got something, you know, and I am tired of sitting here smelling it.
Move your camper, get out your plate.
And I told him, I said, get over here, get a plate, we got extra, have a seat. Oh, we made a buddy that weekend, I'm here to tell you. But being a good cook is, remember we talking about barter skills? Being a good cook is a major barter skill. Especially when times get tough, if you can cook, people will bring you stuff just to get you to cook.
Remember my story about Eloise, Hurricane Eloise? Our neighborhood was without power for 2 weeks, 14 days. And people, we were moving generators from one house to the next to keep refrigerators cold and freezers frozen. And our neighbors were bringing their refrigerator food to her, and she was cooking it on our fireplace. We had a big colonial style fireplace in our house, and it was the only fireplace in the neighborhood. I mean, literally, a lot of them had those decorative fireplaces, but nobody had a working fireplace except us. And Daddy had that big collection of cast ironware, so Mama cooked. We got some, but we got some of the food too, but she cooked for them, put it in their container that they brought, and sent it home.
Well, when Eloise hit with us, and of course power's going to be out, and my granny got a one of them half-gallon mason jars.
Yeah.
2 of them. Sent me with that and had me walk 2 streets over to this little small mom and pop gas station that still had mechanical pumps to pump gas with from World War II. And so they had set up, you know, they had electric pumps, but they had simply just, those pumps had auxiliary you could tap into, so they tapped into it and was sitting there with a World War II hand pump selling gas. And behind the place was a kerosene tank that had 500 gallons of kerosene. And so she sent me over there, and for I think 50 cents, they filled up both of those kerosene. And when they asked me why, I said, Granny said, we got lamps and we need kerosene. And he said, oh, you're lucky you got lamps. And so we had probably a dozen kerosene lamps still at the house, although we'd had electricity for many, many years, but we had not gotten rid of those lamps. We just needed some more oil.
I live in the house that my grandfather built as a wedding present for my grandmother in 1924. And it's had electricity the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a half a dozen or more kerosene lamps in my house. Doesn't give off a whole world of light, but it beats walking around stumping your toe in the dark.
Yeah, it beats batteries because it'll run all night on one filling.
Yeah, and don't ever leave your lantern burning. When you go to bed, it goes to bed.
Yep, you put it out. You don't need night lights.
And one thing that you see in movies is they will walk up to it and they will crank it down and turn it off.
No, the wick can fall into the oil.
If you do that, you have just ignited a gasoline bomb. Don't do that.
Nope, because that wick can drop down into that tank of oil, and if there's enough air and it's low enough, it won't extinguish it because it'll just roll right out of the connector.
Yes. Take the time to lift your lantern off, put your hand behind the top of the chimney, blow into your hand, and put it out.
Yeah.
Do not, under any circumstances, crank the wick down into the tank.
Yeah.
Because it will blow up.
And don't do like my ex-brother-in-law, who's going to blow it out and lean over the top of it and then inhale to blow it out.
You would have to do that right as I was taking a sip.
Yeah, I mean, he was going to put it out, and instead of taking a deep breath and, like he's saying, put your hand up there and go, so it directs it down and puts it out, he just leaned over the top and went, like that, and took one big lungful of kerosene fumes, and of course he's gagging and a coughing.
Here's your sign.
Woo! Yeah. Yeah. I remember my grandmother telling my sister the next day, said, you had to marry somebody from the city. Alright, I'm going to pause the camera for a minute. We're going to let this cook a bit more, and then we'll be back with you in just a minute. Go.
Let's check it. Clean. Clean. Clean.
Alright, she's done.
We've got bread.
By doing that, if it was still wet dough, it'd come out wet.
It'd be tacky on the blade.
It'd come out something like so. So since it's got a colored dark knife, it shows up really good. But a lot of times people would have a stick or a long splinter or something, even straw, stick in there just to see what it come out like. Alright, we're going to pull mine. It should be done as well. If it's not, well, we'll show that too in just a minute. Alright, let's get over to the table and we'll take a look. Alright, now Barry's going to cut a piece out, and we're going to take a look at it and see what it looks like.
Just making sure it's separated from the bowl, from the pan.
Very nice loaf.
Pretty good. Never trust a skinny cook.
Yeah.
We'll let it breathe just a minute.
Yeah, whenever you cook bread, let it cool. if you slice it, all the steam comes out of it and it dries the bread out. So
while mine's cooling, we'll unbox his.
So let's see now. Woo, yep. Undo the screw a little bit. Take me a hand protector. Alright, now come on. I said. And I did not cook it. It got hot, but I didn't get enough heat on it. Now it's wet.
Take your handle off.
Just a second. Put it in the Dutch.
Yeah, I've got heat to spare.
Alright, hold on, just do that. And you know, let me see your glove. I gotta grab the actual piece. Otherwise it's gonna spin. Take that. Put that down there. Grab a hold of that. Get a hold of that.
That's the cool thing about a Dutch oven. You've got a lot of heat to spare. You can share.
There. Okay, go ahead. Alright. I failed. Well, it's an experiment, right? Now he'll put it in that Dutch, he'll put that lid back on it with that heat, and it'll be done in 10 minutes. Okay? Learning experience. Why did it fail? This is the first time I've used the aluminum Dutch oven. I've done this with the steel. That's the steel cook set. This is the aluminum. And this is the first time I've ever used that aluminum. And that aluminum just did not hold the heat well enough. I needed more heat. Now I could have probably baked it if I had put a ring of coals around the entire thing on the ground on the outside and let a column of heat work. But by sitting it on the top, it did not transfer well enough to make it do the job. And that's simply a learning. See, now, like I said, I've done this with this very trick with the steel and made biscuits in short order. But this didn't. The aluminum made a difference. So it's learning.
I always hate to contradict the great hat of wisdom, but he did not fail. Okay? There is no such thing as a failure. There is a such thing as a learning curve, a learning experience. And like he said, this is the first time he's used that.
Yep.
This was a learning experience.
That's why we try this stuff out before we take it to the field. If I had done this with my steel one.
We know what a Dutch oven will do.
Yes.
We didn't know what this would do.
That aluminum that told me I need a lot more heat. A lot more heat. But what does fail stand for? First attempt in learning. Okay,
Absolutely.
First attempt. I learned something. It ain't gonna work with this one. Now, slice off a little end piece of that and let's try that out. I even got jelly.
If he keels over, I apologize in advance, folks.
Nah, it'll be fine. Nice bread.
It's got a good crumb. Firm.
Yeah, it's good. And this is just bare bread. This isn't a biscuit, it's a loaf of bread. This would be really good if you added some garlic to it for doing with spaghetti. Yeah, just drizzle a little bit out on there.
It's liquid.
Yeah, the heat. That's good. Cut her in half.
Yeah, it's a semi-solid in this environment.
There we go. Yeah, good. You don't succeed every time, but you do learn every time. So,
This was a success.
This was a success. Oh
on
yeah.
all counts.
Now you got beer bread, which is one of the simplest breads you can make, guys. You just take the stuff, pour the beer into it, stir it up, put it in the pan, you're done. That's it. Bake it at 350 in a home oven for what? Probably
55 minutes.
55 minutes? That's a long time, ain't it?
Well, this was in there for 45.
Yeah, okay.
50-ish.
Okay. Because it is a dense loaf. Okay.
It is a dense loaf.
Well,
My daughter and I are starting a project this afternoon. We're going to start making sourdough starter.
mm-hmm.
And it'll be in a jar about like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-rising flour or plain flour, it doesn't really matter. And lukewarm water. And I can't remember, I've got my little recipe for it at home. I don't remember if it has yeast in it or not. Sourdough's real good about, well, you have the lid uncovered, so there's a lot of natural yeast in there.
Sourdough naturally makes bubbles. That's what makes the bread puff up.
Yeah, it will absorb. It's sort of a natural yeast magnet, so you don't really have to add some, but I guess you could if you wanted to.
What I recommend you do to start out is look at your big box store or whatever and find you a mix that's just add water. It tells you in the directions how to do it. Start on the stove at home. Start on the oven. Get you a Dutch oven or some equivalent. Now, are we practicing making the bread or are we practicing using a Dutch oven? Initially, practice making the bread, okay? Get good at it. Be able to, I can pop, 1, 2, 3, boom, I got a loaf of bread, okay? Now we're going to change and we're going to do what you already know how to do of making bread. Now we're going to do it in a Dutch oven. Now we're learning how to regulate heat. How many coals, how much this, how much that. That's the thing. I have used, again, that mix many times and I like the biscuits that come out of it. But I didn't think about, well, I didn't take into account not enough heat. And as hot as it is right now and everything, I was really, to be honest, afraid I was going to burn it to a crisp. And I might have done it on the steel, but I didn't do it on the aluminum.
That's the problem with aluminum. You have to be really mindful of your temperatures.
Too much is burned, not enough, and it don't cook.
And heat is not a good exchanger of heat. Aluminum is not a good exchanger of heat.
Mm-hmm.
It is nowhere near as efficient as steel or cast iron.
Well, it will pass through it in a hurry.
It will move through it, but it won't retain it.
Mm-hmm.
It just passes through it. It's like aluminum wiring in a house. There's a reason why you don't have aluminum wiring in a house anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The more current you pass through it, the more brittle it got.
Until finally it'd snap and cause a fire.
Cause a short.
But with learning about it, again, experiment. Take it, try it, find out. Get to where you've got a recipe you know how to make well. Then practice that recipe with different cooking mediums in a Dutch oven, in an aluminum pot. Next time I go to try this out, there's going to be a whole lot more heat. I'll probably burn the snot out of it, but I'll figure it out. You know what? That's 86 cents.
You can burn 86 cents.
Yeah, I got one. I got enough material left there to do another one, so I could right now clean this up, redo it, and if I had cold, start over again and figure out how to do it. I should be able to bake a biscuit in like 15-20 minutes. Should be. It's what I'm used to doing in my sets. In these, not so much, but we're learning. Well, I guess that's it for the day, sir.
Well, there is one more thing.
What?
Take this home to Mrs. Blackie.
I will do that.
And y'all will have supper. And take those home with you.
Okay.
Try them out.
I will take this home and we will do spaghetti tonight. And I'll make some butter garlic to dip this in. That'll go with the spaghetti.
Or you can take it and slice it horizontally and flip it open.
Yeah.
Brush it down and toast it.
Yeah, that'd be good too. That would be real good. Well, thank you, sir. Enjoyed it.
It's been fun.
Guys, we appreciate it, and there'll be another one down the line. We'll come up with a new topic and do another Old Wayz.
Number 7.
Number 7. I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. If you have, please leave us a comment and a like down below to help fuel that algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time.
Give us a suggestion.
Yes.
Keep suggesting topics. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, say what you want to hear. Somebody said they want to see us do bread, so that's the reason we're doing this. So, guys, till next time, I'm Blackie and Bear. Have a great day, guys.